he that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. This is from Proverbs 18:13. And the reason I wanted to open up with that is because I've been doing a lot of thinking about the way that we communicate as a society, as a culture, particularly online, but oftentimes in real life. We have this terrible habit of sometimes intentionally misunderstanding people. And I think we've all been there. I've been guilty of this. Sometimes I am. And the awareness is what actually helps me to correct myself, to be understanding. So I won't say that I'm perfect at this, but I think that we can all take a note in understanding people a little bit better. And one of the things that we can learn to do by exercising a little bit of restraint is certainly to understand people better. So this is something that I think I've always been aware of because I've been having conversations, as you have, my whole life. But only up until the past few months when I've been posting consistently on social media, especially about like the sensitive topics that I talk about, I'm starting to realize that people either do not have the ability to comprehend, they choose to not comprehend, or they're able to comprehend, but they want to disagree. So typically, when we have conversations, there's always going to be someone that says, yeah, but, right? And those are the ones that I think strike a nerve the most. Only because it's deflection. And nobody likes deflection. We don't like when people deflect when we want to talk about something. So if I'm correcting my husband about something, or if I'm bringing up a concern of mine that I have, and he says, yeah, but I only do that because you, now we're going to fight. Because we're not talking about me. I'm talking about you. And this is one of the things that happens in our communications with people online. And it's exhausting. It is exhausting. It's exhausting even not being the creator sometimes and watching it happen in other people's comment sections, because it's almost like you want to go through the phone and shake the person and be like, will you just listen? We have to move away from it. And I think that one of the things that we can do to learn to do that is to really quiet your mind. Even if you have to actively tell yourself, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. Just listen, just listen, just listen, just listen. That will suffice. Because what is becoming unacceptable is purposely missing the point. I'm going to give y'all a few examples. So I reposted a video actually, and then I decided to do a stitch of that video. The gentleman in the video, obvious man of God, obviously got his head on right, obviously is very versed in the word of God by his other posts. But he said, and also a man who provides for his family. He's having a conversation in the video with his wife and his two young adult children, daughters. And he's saying men are not romantic. Now, when you first hear that, and I know that this is the problem, most people don't have the patience that God gave a centipede to be able to sit and listen, right, through the whole thing. So a lot of people, the way that he structured the video, the words, men are not romantic, is plastered on the screen. So people already make up in their head what they're going to say, or, you know. So the first thing that I put in the video, he said, men are not romantic. And his daughters went to arguing with him, and they were like, no, no, no. And his wife says, you can't speak for all men. But the one thing I've learned, when a man is telling you about other men, as a woman, you be quiet. So I sat through the video, and I was amazed because he gave such insight. Some of what I already knew, he just helped me to connect the dots. So what he was explaining in that video is that men are not romantic. And I'm actually going to play the clip for y'all. He says men are not romantic. They do those things for women.
I wasn't going to sit here and play games with y'all. Going to tell you the truth. Men do not.
Because most people... No, you can't speak for all
He only doing that for you to please you.
Right.
Men are not romantic because women have a romance in their head. The men just trying to figure out.
Yeah,
you know how many men on Valentine's Day we trying to figure out? I'm gonna just buy. That's why all y'all just get flowers.
Yeah, because we learned it from Disney Channel. They was watching Power Rangers, Dragon Ball Z, Ninja Turtles, Pokemon, all this stuff. We watching Disney princesses and people getting married and having kids and stuff, and they're not watching that. The boys are not raising them.
So it's programming, you're saying.
Right.
But they can learn. They have the capacity to learn, right?
Teaching nobody's son how to be romantic. Bye.
Let me just tell you something. Why would you want, there we go again with the control. Want to make a man be the way you want him to be.
Right.
Let the man love you the way he wants to love you. You'll be better off.
So if you listen very carefully, when he started off talking, there was a lot of pushback. Everybody's trying to talk over him. Mind you, it's a room. It's a man with 3 women in the room. And they're just trying to convince him, no. His wife says, not all men, you know. And what primarily happened just in this clip and throughout the entire video is this misunderstanding of what he's trying to say. And this also happened in my comment section, but I'm used to it because it happens very frequently in my comment section, especially when we talk about things where a woman is supposed to be met with accountability. When we do the turning over the mirror and looking at self-reflection, it makes a lot of women uncomfortable. And I'm saying women because that's primarily who I talk to. Although my audience has men as well, that's who I talk to. And so initially I was a little taken aback by that. It was a bit frustrating to watch because, again, that speaks to exactly what I mean, where instead of giving him the space to talk. Now, of course, we don't know what happened before the clip started. It seems like they were kind of like in the middle of this conversation and the mom just started recording. But we don't know what happened before that clip started. And so he's breaking down the point that men are not romantic. And because he said it that way, people got offended. But if you listen further, he's trying to bring home the point that really, if you have a man who is romantic, it is because he loves you. A man is not going to be romantic, and we're talking in generalizations. A man is not going to be romantic on his own. And so his daughter says, well, I'm not teaching a man to be romantic. Bye, right? And I mean, to a certain extent, I agree. There are certain things, if you want a man to be a certain way and he's not that way when you meet him, don't try to change him because he's only going to do it because you want him to do it. But on the same side of that, this man is saying to his daughters and to his wife, listen, there is no real romance when it comes to a man. The romance is a show because that man loves you. That is not who he is deep down. He's just putting on a show, and it's okay, right? But that's what it is. He would be doing that because that's what it is that he understands to be something that you like. Now, he then goes on, he says, when his daughter says, I'm not teaching no man to be romantic, bye, right? He's like, there goes the control. And he's alluding to the fact that we as women like to always control the outcome. We like to control the way that our husbands are. We like to control the way that they love us. We like to control. And I had spoken about this before as well. But I don't even want to get too deep into the story of it. The concept is the unbelievable amount of people who both in his comment section and my comment section completely missed the point was baffling to me. And it's baffling to me, but then when I think about it, it's really not. And by the way, this man's name is Unc is Talking on Instagram. Is UNCIS Talking. His username is at Let Unc UNC Talk. And he makes really good TikToks. He spreads really good messages. But it wasn't astounding to me when I thought about the fact that most of us project and most of us listen to be offended. So there were several women who, just like the mom was saying in the video, they were like, well, not all men are romantic. There were men who were like, he doesn't speak for all men. There were women who were like, well, my boyfriend is romantic, so I don't know what y'all are talking about. All inappropriate responses if you actually listen to what the man is saying. And if you actually listen to the video, I did, because in the video I stitched the very thing that I'm talking about now, where I gave the example, and this is why I say he helped me to connect the dots. He said that, and I was like, you know what? That's crazy, because that sounds like my husband. There's things that my husband does for me that I know he did not do them when he was single. I know that he has not done them with other women. Not saying that he has not exercised romance with other women. That's not what I'm getting at. But I'm saying that he's never done the hiking, the picnics, because he's never been with a woman that valued those types of things. He's been with women that had other values and other standards and other things that they appreciated, right? And so there are things that he does as a result of me just wanting to do them. And that, to me, does make it still romantic. But what this man is explaining is that it's not because the man wants to be romantic. It is because the man loves you and he wants to cater to your desires, right? And it was just alarming to me how many people listen to that and completely miss the point. Another example of this is I posted recently, this always happens. I said, don't burn the house down because there's socks on the floor if the bills are being paid. Like, don't sweat the small stuff, right? And of course, there's always the comments that come in, well, what if the bills aren't being paid? Well, what if I work and it's 50-50? Well, what if he just put his... And it's just like, most of you are not comprehending. I posted a video on YouTube, and I can go on and on with these examples where I'm talking about the standard of a wife and a husband. A lady asked me, she said, how come men get off the hook? We were reading a book, and this was her question in response to what I said about that book. And I posted the response to the question. She said something along the lines of, how come we don't hold men to the same impossible standard that they hold us to? And I actually ended up explaining to her that we make up that standard. Men don't have crazy expectations of us, right? Our husbands don't have crazy expectations of us. And again, I gave an example where when I'm tired, when I'm overwhelmed, if I tell my husband that I'm tired or overwhelmed, he'll be like, babe, just order takeout. Come sit down, right? But in my head, he just solved the problem, but I still feel like, oh, he's going to order takeout. Let me go clean up. Let me go do this. Oh, no, it's okay. I don't want to do takeout. Let me cook. Because I have these like impossibly difficult standards on myself, these unrealistic standards of being a perfect mom and a perfect wife. And because I feel like that's how I feel about myself, I intend to believe that my husband expects that too. My daughters and my sons expect that of me too. And I have to perform at this high level because everybody's counting on me. But we put that pressure on ourselves because the only reason we think that is because we don't put anything down and we don't allow people to help us. And for our husbands, it is a matter of just getting the thing done sometimes. But for us, it's a matter of getting the thing done like this at this proper time, at this particular angle. And we can drive ourselves and our husbands crazy in the process of doing that. And so when I gave the example, somebody listened to the video, a few people, well, no, you just have a good man and you're lucky because men do have impossible standards. And it's not to say that they didn't understand what I was talking about, but they completely removed the context of the original conversation. Because first of all, I'm not lucky. I was intentional and I chose the man that I have, right? And I think we need to do a better job of taking credit for that. Now, I wanted to respond to that in another video, but I decided to let it be because I've also learned that you don't go back and forth with these type of people because they're seeking to not understand, they're seeking to be right. And most of these people, even if you were to break it down in a way that makes more sense, they're still going to claim or cling to whatever their notion is because they want to be right more than they want to understand what you're saying. And so instead of them saying, and I have had times where they're like, oh, okay, I apologize, I see your point. But instead of people doing that, when you clarify, they usually double down and then they try to start calling you names or try to, debunk everything that you're saying. But truth be told, often the content that I make is for women in relationships with good men. But the underlying thing of having a good man is that 98% of the time, and I'm making this statistic up, but an overwhelming majority of the time, we end up with these men that we chose and we knew who they were before we married them. The bait and switch and the changing is not as common as we think it is. And a lot of times we would know and we would choose better if we did our due diligence. But most of us are so excited to get married, so excited to have a man, so desperate to not be single that we jump right over those things and we continue into a relationship anyway, right? And so going back to the main point though, we have to learn to listen and we have to learn to take our time, and we have to learn to exercise patience. And we also have to start throwing our offense out the window, because when you're listening to perspectives, when you're listening to another person share something or give insight on something, you have to take in all the details, and you can't take in all the details if you're listening with offense. So if you see that video and it says men are not romantic, and that gets you worked up, now you're not even listening to what he's saying. You're thinking about what you're going to say. If you hear me talk about catering to your man, if you hear me talking about being submissive to your man, and you're listening with your trauma because you were cheated on, because you had a husband that abused you, because you saw your mother be abused, because you've only dated terrible men, your traumas are going to be screaming from the inside, and you can't even hear what I'm saying. And you're for sure not going to be able to hear me when I say that's not the case for everybody, right? But we have to also understand that when we have these think pieces and we talk about these things, nothing is ever all black and white. Nothing is ever all men, all women. So I don't understand why that needs to constantly be brought up, or why people need to say, if you say something about husbands, the husbands will pop up and say, and vice versa, this goes for the wives too, and the wives will do the same thing. And it's just an exhausting experience to live, because like, we don't get to have these conversations and have them in a healthy way if we're constantly deflecting, if we're constantly listening to respond, right? So imagine I'm having a conversation with my husband, and he opens up to me and he says, babe, I feel really overwhelmed as the head of this household. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm not providing well enough. I'm really worried about our future and my ability to take care of us. Imagine my husband says that, and I say, oh, so what, you don't want to take care of me no more? I'm a burden. Me and the kids are a burden. Let me go get a job. Imagine. Is that what he said? Or did he say, I'm feeling overwhelmed? What does he really need in that moment? I wouldn't know if I listened with offense, and now there's going to be a fight. Because I just put words in his mouth, and I just invalidated his experience. And now he's not going to want to open up to me. And now I'm going to be the wife that says, my husband never tells me anything. He never opens up to me. He's so cold towards me. And I think we don't realize it's in these little interactions. Every time your husband comes to tell you something, you're getting offended. Every time your husband lists a grievance or just wants to open up about something, you take it personally. And I'm not going to say that wouldn't be hard to hear, because obviously his finances and his ability to feel overwhelmed directly impact me. Right? They directly impact my children. So obviously it would be something that, if my husband were to say that to me, it would be something that makes you like, okay. But we have to learn how to put our offense to the side. Of an appropriate way to respond to that would be like, babe, I'm supportive. I hear you. What do you need? Right? What do you think we should do? What steps do you need me to take? Is there anything I need to do differently? How can I support you? But instead, most women would hear that and immediately get offended. Go looking on Indeed for a job tomorrow, because they can't take that this man is being vulnerable. And most of the time when our husbands are vulnerable with us, they don't even want us to solve the problem or to do anything. They just want to know that you care. They're going to continue to be the strong man that they are, but they want to know that they can open up to their wives and be heard. They want to know that somebody hears them, somebody understands, somebody cares about them. And imagine how much that's not going to help when you say something like, well, I'm just going to, because now you just invalidated everything. And now all of his fears about nobody cares about me just came true, because you just showed him that you don't care about him in the way that you responded. Right? And so I think that we really do have to do a better job. This happens a lot. This happens with the way that we hear people speak about things in regard to our relationship with Jesus. This happens with outside of relationships. It happens when people are just unpacking regular experiences that happen. People love to be offended. People love to be offended. If I get on the internet right now and say I don't like blue sweaters because they make my shoulders look big, somebody who loves blue sweaters is going to call me a hater. And I'm not throwing my blue sweater out because you told me to. Who told you to throw your blue sweater out? I say I don't like them. So we live in a state of constant friction because of the fact that we just don't listen. We don't listen to be understanding. We listen just to respond. We listen to be triggered. Nobody cares about the next person. And I think the start to that is really just exercising restraint. Sometimes we want to say things, but sometimes you just need to be quiet. Sometimes you just need to listen. Sometimes when you get offended, you just need to ask for clarification. I'm going to use the same example. If I felt a way as a wife and my husband said that to me, I would say, well, babe, are you saying that we're stressing you out, or is it that the pressure to provide is stressing you out? What exactly is stressing you out? And that's so much better than just getting offended and, I can't believe you said that. Because we know that when we open up to people, we don't want them to react that way. We want people to listen to us. So we all crave to be heard and to be understood and to be listened to, but we rarely give out the opportunity to listen to someone intently. Same thing goes for politics. Same thing goes for when we're having conversations, like I said, about religion. It's just, it's exhausting. And I feel like I know the solution, but the solution doesn't lie upon one group of people. It would have to be everybody makes a decision to be intentional. And what's the likelihood of that happening? I don't know. See you in the next episode.